2023. I'm Dana Durnford, nuclear proctologist at work. We're on a marine research expedition. This is trip 9. We're in the Atlantic Ocean. We're in the Atlantic Ocean, and there's some cormorants over here off the point. You probably can't see them. On those rocks in the center. And so we're going into the bay here, looking for any kind of birds or whales. I heard a rumor there was a few whales around this morning. We were trying to get the truck into a garage, and I basically got no across the board, but there's still, when I get in this afternoon, I'll try another couple of spots further up the bay from where I'm to. We want to get in right away and get at least a diagnosis and estimate started, and hopefully it's nothing serious. Hi everybody, good morning everyone. Are we streaming? I think we're streaming live widescreen again this morning. And I'm just trying to catch up to the comments here now. Yeah, it's full screen, thank you, Colette. I call it. And blue skies. And I haven't got my glasses. Where's my glasses? I can't read anything on a little screen. Oh, we gotta hang on here. Let me see what we're doing. So we're right on the shoreline. We're looking for the migratory birds. The fact that we're not seeing them nesting now, we've covered 100 kilometers of this coastline. That's going to be our research area for the rest of the summer. And we'll also be doing species counts in the forest. And let me get that back outdoors for everybody. Don Vincent, another CG. And the quality is superb. That's good to hear. In fact, that's fantastic to hear. And this thing is pretty good at shielding the wind. And we got a bit of a wind here up in the bay. And so we're going to get a couple hours in today. I spilled some gas this morning, so I got the hatches up to let it evaporate. It wasn't very much, but it doesn't take much when it comes to fumes. And so we've seen some cormorants on the rocks, but it's not seen any birds in the water whatsoever. Oh, I think I might see a couple of birds headed in. That looks like cormorants. Now, cormorants are not indigenous to the province. They're not supposed to be here. They don't come here in their migratories. And growing up on this ocean, I've never seen cormorants, neither does anybody else. But I was talking to a guy this morning who was telling me he rescued several cormorants and other birds recently that showed up on the beaches and were completely passive. And so every day we can get out here is a major win. Audio wind, and we're getting wind from the audio. Yeah, so when I start hitting it out of the bay, we'll have the wind behind us, and so I'll try to watch the audio while we're doing this. And when we start heading out the bay in about 10 minutes, the wind will be behind us for the rest of the stream, so we won't have that issue. My apologies to anybody. And so it's difficult enough doing the research and then trying to live stream to raise that awareness is basically an act of desperation. And this is the biggest migratory route on the planet. There's around 46 million migratory birds come through here each year. And millions of them will nest along the coastlines. This is the very tip of the continent. You're about 12, 13 miles from the end of the continent. So you're right out on the end of the North American continent, on the east coast of Canada, in the Atlantic, on an island, in prime, an absolute prime breeding grounds. And the guy I was talking to this morning there, he does updates on capelin and whales and stuff like that, and he hasn't seen the capelin rolling, which is, he's quite shocked. Now the capelins failed last year. They're about 7, 8, 9 inches long, and the capelin season failed last year, and they're not really expecting any difference this year, I don't think, but it's a wait and see. Hi, Jeff. Don Vincent. So I'll keep the camera inside for the most part, unless I'm doing this right. And what we're looking for is any kind of migratory birds that would show up here and take a break. And when we start going out on the other side, we'll be checking the cliffs also to see for nesting. And we're just trying to confirm whether they're there or not. And so far they're not. And today it's supposed to get really hot. And because I can't get into a garage, I got to do something or I'm going to lose my mind. We got to get some research in. And so that poor truck, man, that's crazy stuff. We'll deal with it. We got 8 thumbs up and 6 people on the stream for the most important subject in history. 8 million people on the planet, and we got 7 people on our show. 8 billion people rather on our planet. And so we've been hit away desperately by the industries. Now I still haven't seen a pigeon or a puffin rather. We haven't seen any murres or turs. We haven't seen any shearwaters. We haven't seen any flocks of birds in particular. And sure, this bay here, because you're in the perfect spot, there should be just groups of hundreds or thousands of birds coming through and viciously feeding. They should be feeding. We should see a lot of whales. I'm gonna put us on the sonar, because the sonar is forward looking. The sonar takes a few seconds. The temperature today is 46.42 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. It'll do that sometime with the GPS. So when we get up to the bottom of the bay, which is only another few minutes, we're going to start heading out, and then we can have the camera right out the window more. But right now we're not seeing any birds in the water, period, nothing. And just because you're in a community, you got to remember you're out in the migratory route, and that doesn't really matter. This is their first chance, basically, to do major feeding. And this is, if they don't show up, then they starve to death somewhere else. And so far, they should have been here in the nest. They should have been raising the fledglings right now. And so we're not seeing no rookeries, no hatch. We're not seeing any species. We're not seeing any dolphins or porpoises or whales. We're not seeing any flying birds. No. We're not seeing any feeding going on in the water itself. And this is day 10 of not seeing anything feeding in the ocean whatsoever. Like, you know what I mean? Because you would get groups of 10 to 5,000 birds will go feeding on surface fish. When the whales in particular are feeding, you'll see them everywhere. When you see whales, you should see birds that are trying to feed on what the whales are not able to consume when they come to the surface. And the whales will blow bubbles and push capelin, for instance, up to the surface, and then they'll follow them up and then try to scoop them up when they get close to the surface. And then you'll see the birds will be going crazy trying to take advantage of that moment. And in here, this is prime territory, believe it or not. This is absolutely fantastic territory. And so not seeing anything is quite shocking. Now, I did remember to bring the charger today for the phone, because we never had enough juice to take a chance the other day to stick the drone in the water or the drone in the ear. So we're going to make the turn, go up along this little bit of shoreline, then we'll have the wind behind us, and then we can have the camera out the window all the time. Still birds, some birds in eastern Dakota. And the thing with the chat messaging is it doesn't stay on my screen for very long. So if you're into the show and you found us, please remember to give us a thumbs up, even if it's later. It doesn't matter, I'm going to do the research anyway. And so there's nothing here whatsoever. There's literally nothing in the water whatsoever. And there's no kelp washed up on the beaches. Let's go in a little bit closer so we can quantify that assertion. I'm not seeing kelp on the beaches. And we really should, because we had 2 weeks of easterly and northeasterly winds, and we haven't had any storms to wash it back off the beaches, right? So we should be seeing something on the beaches because it's so calm, you know? So we do got 3 cormorants, and the cormorants are not supposed to count. Well, we'll have to make sure it's cormorants in a second. Yeah, that's cormorants. There's 4 of them, actually. You won't be able to see them, probably, unfortunately. You have to take my word for it. They're headed on the other side of that. I'm surprised not to see any murres or turs or puffins in here. You're on the biggest migratory route on the planet. So yeah, there's nothing on the beaches. I'm going to zoom in for you. So quality will drop down whenever I zoom in. There's nothing on the beaches, eh? There's no, like, what I mean by that, there's no line of kelp washed up on the beaches. There should be a fairly good line of kelp. So we're going to start heading out the bay any minute. And we'll be able to put the camera right outdoors. Let me zoom back out for you. Yeah, poison is one of the favorite methods of genocide by the nuclear industry. They don't need a nuclear war because nuclear power plants are a nuclear war. The fallout from them are catastrophic to all the species. And this industry has never been called out about it. We're the only ones, as far as I know, to ever call them out about the fallout from nuclear power plants from the fuel pools. And they only talk about cancer as an illness, but there's 1,800 diseases, and they affect the animal kingdom, not just humans. And so we've got lots of reports of seals and sea lions, thousands of them dying of weird cancers over the last number of years in groups, which is what we expected to be happening around 7, 8, 9 years after. And we got confirmation of starvation from absurd amount of sources over the years. And how can you deny it, see? Now the tide zones, the tide is just coming up about 2 hours ago, I guess. And high tide is around a little after 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And I'm not sure what time it is right now. Actually, it's saying it's 12 a.m., 12 p.m., right? So it's noon, 13 minutes after noon. Could be. I didn't think it was that late. I guess that's because I was up to the garage just trying to get into a garage today. Okay, so we're going to start heading out, and then we can put the camera out the window to give you a better view. Yeah, the chat locked up because guess who called me? That was Charlie called me. Calm down, Charlie. Yeah, we're back up in line. I apologize. I thought the stream would continue if I answered the phone. And Charlie called me from a Massachusetts number this time, which is bizarre land. So we're not seeing any kind of rookeries, any nests. There's 2 seagull colonies that we found over the last 10 days. They're surviving on the fish plant. They're not surviving by mussels and sea urchins and regular food. See, when the tide goes down, the birds like to go into the tidal zones. And we got a bunch of seagulls up ahead. Seagulls up ahead. And they're not doing nothing. They're not feeding. They're all on the rocks. And on the other, right straight on the other side of right there is the fish plant. On the other side of that peninsula. Charlie trying to torture me here by calling me over and over and over. So if the stream interrupts, don't worry, it'll pop back up again. My apologies for that. That was Charlie. He was calling me over and over and over and over to disrupt the stream. And so he's got something to do with TEPCO. We traced his original number to the Japanese embassy in Chicago, I think it was. And they've been stalking me for years and years and years. Okay, so now we're headed back out. So all these seagulls, it's low tide, and they're not feeding in the low tide. And they should be going absolute. So they've been feeding at the fish plant. And so the 2 little rookeries, or the colonies of seagulls, are the residential seagulls. We got a couple of cormorants on a rock out there. And I didn't think there was a rock out right there. Oh, I see it on my GPS there now. Well, that's nice to see. I didn't realize there was a rock way out there. I gotta remember that for next time. You can see the seagulls. Sorry. Like, they're not feeding. Right? They're just, they've been eating at the fish plant most likely. And it's hard to imagine that there's no species whatsoever. There's no fish jumping after small fish. There's no diversity. There's no ducks. There's no cormorant. Well, there's a few cormorants. There's no, which don't belong here, by the way. There's no migratory birds, no flocks of birds. We're not seeing any insects on the shoreline this morning. Again, this is day 9. really something. And we're being awful brave going into this water right here. I got the forward-looking sonar on, but it's hard to keep an eye on it when you're looking for birds and you're doing a live stream and everything else, right? So don't mind me, because it's not that I'm scatterbrained, it's I got a lot going on. And so we haven't seen any birds swimming or feeding whatsoever. No flocks of birds, just the residential cormorants that don't belong here. And so the nuclear industry is unbelievable evil what they've done. And they know what they've done and they're trying to cover it up. They got really nobody to pick on, just me at the moment. Hopefully there's 1,000 people starts doing the same thing as I'm doing. And then we can get some kind of consensus, right? The one thing about me is I'm very, very observant. And it's not a game. I have to screw around with so we are streaming okay, are we? We are streaming good, right? I'll wait for the chat to tell me what's going on. Always takes about 10 seconds for the chat to hear what I'm saying on your end. Thank you, Don. Bless your heart, my friend. Stream is great. Awesome. Well, like, at least somebody's out here doing something is all I can say. And I'd be doing more, but we got so many problems, right? We got problems with the truck, problems with the boat. We got problems getting fuel for this operation. And we should be out there every single day, and we should be doing different parts of the province. And right now I can only go locally because my truck is, we'll get it in the shop, hopefully this week or early next week at the latest. When I get in this afternoon, I'll be trying again. We got to get a diagnosis to figure out how much money it's going to cost. And so we got more than enough to do that to get started. And I forgot to put any fuel in the boat, and so the boat was empty. I had a 5-gallon jerry can, emergency jerry can, and I poured that in just before I went live, and so I can't go too far this morning. And I wasn't intending to, right? Temperature's supposed to get up around 80, 85 degrees. It's definitely around 70 degrees right now. And it's horrifying to be out here and not see any activity. And so when we get out just ahead there another kilometer, we'll be all cliffs. And we'll see if any migratory birds showed up. I think it's too late for the migratory birds at this stage. They didn't show up, which means they're gone. And they should be here earlier in order to nest and raise the fledglings, right? So there should be rookeries everywhere where they're raising the fledglings right now. The 2 seagull colonies, what we discovered, they're cannibalizing the seagulls because they have nothing to feed them. They have nothing to feed themselves, and so they're just eating the baby seagulls. And we caught that on the live stream a few streams ago, to everybody's horror. Yeah, California is really bad, Colette. Thank you. And Kevin last night is going to try to get down. And there's thousands of die-offs, a huge die-off in California that they're blaming on the domoic acid. And the domoic acid, they try to blame the millions of MERS in the Pacific and Alaska and Western and Northern Canada. I was on the research expeditions up there at that time on domoic acid. And so there was 1.4 million, I think it was, MERS, and they dive 900 feet all day, or 600 feet all day. They feed on anchovies and squids and sardines and krill and stuff. And they showed up over 1 million starved to death. And at the same time, Cassini auklets, there was over 1 million Cassini auklets showed up emaciated too. And they eat the microscopic animals. So you had the MERS eating the small fish and the squid and stuff, and the Cassini auklets were eating the microscopic animals. So you had two different spectrums of the food chain showing up emaciated at the same time. We had that happen to us here on the East Coast last year in April, where you had dovekites, you had the MERS, commenters, and thick-billed MERS showing up for 600 miles emaciated. It was downplayed. They tried to cover it up. We went out and done research expeditions and were stalked by 2 Japanese in a truck. And this morning we have the Japanese calling us up, being belligerent with us again. They can do whatever they want, and it's not going to change what I'm doing. There's nothing going to drive me off my research, and there's nothing going to change the fact that the species have disappeared. We have to get out and prove it at all costs. No matter what, we got to get out as much as we can and prove that the species are gone. Hopefully we're wrong. We find millions of birds and hundreds or thousands of whales, and that would be incredible. That's a better outcome for me, right? But that's not what we're seeing. And so we're not seeing a diversity of species. We're not seeing any species. We're not seeing any nesting colonies. And we know that down in Baccaloo Island, not just down the coast, about 60 kilometers away, is the biggest nesting colonies on the planet of storm petrels. And there's around 3.3 million breeding pairs. And for the last 3 years we've went out there, but we can't find any sign of them. Now they're nocturnal, so I get out there just after midnight and stay till daylight circling the island, and after daylight I'll circle it twice more. And we didn't find any sign of it whatsoever. And it's pretty incredulous to believe that 6.6 million Cassini auklets, or storm petrels, which also eat the microscopic animals like the zooplankton, the phytoplankton. It's pretty ludicrous to suggest that someone as observant as I am, who's been at this for so many years, cannot spot them. That, you know, when you 6.6 million, expect to find carcasses in the ocean. Okay, so we're starting to get into the cliff zone. We're starting to get in the cliffs, and once we get out a little tiny bit further, we'll be in perfect nesting areas for colonies. And we'll be coming back to the others, so I will check in on... Now there's a gull colony just up here, and we're going to be looking for the fledglings again. And what we need is... I'm going to have to go ashore into those colonies somewhere in the next week, list in the next 6 or 7 days, and go in and see if I can spot any fledglings. And so the tide is coming up. We would expect to see seagulls feeding in the tidal zones, right? At least, anyway, because we know there's 2 small residential colonies that are here. They've been here for thousands of years. Yeah, I'm not seeing that many lobster pots, actually. Lobster season must be winding down, because this whole area, remember, was covered in lobster pots. It was ridiculous amount of lobster pots. And I never even thought about it. I just seen my first lobster pot. They must have missed that one. Yeah, so they took the lobster pots in by the looks of it, which makes it a lot safer for what I'm doing. And so my forward sonar is telling me to go left. Go to Port Dana. Pretty amazing not to see nothing. We're in 17 feet of water. I'm inside of my normal, you see the dotted line is the breadcrumb trail that I took before. The breadcrumb trail that I took before. And I'm way inside of it, so I got to be a little bit more cautious. And we got you along for the ride. We've been streaming for about 31 minutes. I did try a stream a few minutes before this one went live and it wasn't in widescreen. And so I restarted the cell phone and rebooted the rotation app. Because you can't widescreen in live stream on YouTube with an Android operating system. And so I have an app there, but it's a little bit finicky. Yeah, if everybody would leave a comment, that would be great. Thank you, Colette. And so the trick is we're moving along at 5.5 kilometers. And so this is real nesting ground right here. We're starting to it now. And just a little tiny bit more. We'll be in even absolute prime. And there's a couple of cormorants in there on the rock. 1, 2. They're pretty shy birds typically, so one just took off. The other one stayed, which is surprising. And there's one seagull. The nuclear industry has destroyed humanity in the 8 million species, period. Fukushima was the radioactive fallout plume that broke the planet's back. It's really shocking, actually. And so this stream will be incontestable evidence down the road, right? Because you're here with me. You can see what I'm seeing in real time. There's no way to misinterpret anything I'm saying. And it's incontestable documentation. That's right, one industry has caused an extinction event and destroyed our planet. And that's the nuclear industry. And the nuclear power plants can do that on their own. They don't need to melt down. The fuel pools are hemorrhaging radiation into the environment 24 hours a day. And so they're boiling off incredible plumes. So what I was thinking about doing later is streaming the whole day, and I probably won't be talking, but I'll mount the camera in the windshield up here, and I can run a microphone actually back to me. I have 2 such microphones, really nice ones actually, that I can run back to me, and we can stream the entire trips. And I think that would be a good option, because you get to see everything the entire day that I'm going to see. And you know, not many people are going to watch that much, but it'll be there for documentation's sake. And then if we find something, I can grab it and put it in my hand and we can investigate it, right? But we're so late into the season. Can I go inside of that rock? I should be able to go inside of this rock, by the looks of it. I'm not really fussy about going inside of like small rocks. If there's an island and you see blue, that's one thing, but we got yellow, which is caution. I'm gonna know what's in there anyway, because there's a colony right up here. of the residential seagulls. Most of these, or all of them, are raising the fledglings from the fish plant. They're not getting anything from the tidal zones. The tide is still coming up until about 4 p.m. Another 3.5 hours before it's high tide. I got the boat in the water. I got a seagull on the shore there. Yeah, I can see a couple lobster pots in here. They moved the lobster pots out the bay, which meant they weren't getting nothing inside here. That's why they moved them all out here. So I can see a whole bunch of them out here. And so we got a long way to go to get out to the turning point. We're going to go across and come down the inside. When I get in this evening, we'll call the rest of the gas stations or repair stations and see if we can get in to get a diagnosis. And so not yesterday, the day before, I had the truck up on the ramps again, trying to pinpoint all these noises I'm hearing. And the gas tank skid plate wasn't installed properly when we done the gas tank there just the day before I had a heart attack, right? Well, I actually had 3 heart attacks. And so one of the nuts was broke off. One of them, the nuts wasn't even bolted in, and the other one was half out. And so that thing was clanging, and we got rid of that particular clanging, but we didn't get rid of the scary issue. And so I'm assuming that the transfer case, the belt in the transfer case is slipping. And so when I hit a big bump, because it's loose, then it slips. Because it only seems to happen when I hit a big bump. And I still got tons of torque. I don't lose any torque whatsoever. And so we got to try to resolve that, because it's the scariest thing imaginable. And when I go back the boat into my garden, I'll hear it again really bad. And so I have to get like a run at the garden, I have to back the boat up a hill and make a turn at the last second, a very tight turn. So it's really hard to do it, because you gotta kind of give it gas to get over. Otherwise, it's going to sound like you're stripping out the transfer cases. Well, I'm assuming today that's what I'm starting to think it is. I'm not going to say that to the mechanic, but I want a diagnosis and see what they say to me. They got to get it fixed, so we've been raising money, and that's what we're going to use it for. And then we got to fix the boat, because right now the boat will get up and take off at high speed, but once it heats up too much, then I can't get it back up to speed anymore. It's a sending unit. But it's not going to stop me from coming out and looking as it is. So this is incredible rookery ground and nesting grounds. And we're seeing seagull colonies, but we're not seeing the diversity you would expect to see here. So it's pretty incredible to come out here and not see any species feeding. It's absolutely horrific. And so they moved those lobster pots out further because you weren't getting nothing inside by the looks of it. Okay, so you can see all the gulls up there. On the other side of that is the fish plant. And so something scared them off their rookery. Look at that. And so there's something up there. So they usually won't do it if there's somebody, say, on a quad or a person. And now they're starting to land. So the fish plant is right on the other side of this. But they were in their nesting colony up here. These are residential birds. And so they've been here for thousands of generations nesting in this area. And in the winter they eat at McDonald's. There's nothing in the tide lines, in the tide zones or low tide to feed the birds. Well, that's an amazing sight, eh? I don't know if it does it justice. Yeah, that's the seabird colony right here. And so we estimate there's somewhere between 600 and 1,000 birds probably in the colony. And they're nested in the grass and the rocks up here. And you can kind of see them dotting. Oh, sorry. Hang on, we'll get back on focus here. They're nesting in the grass on the top of the mountain area. That's fantastic to see, though. Holy shit, that was awesome. So must have been an eagle or something came through because they all reacted so strongly. Now they're all settled back down. Now the other 9 trips when we came past here, we didn't see any activity whatsoever, right? What's interesting is there's nothing in the tidal zones. Oh, we got some right here. And they're supposed to be trying to find food for the fledglings, right? Because they're still, the birds are still nesting yet. So it's bizarre not to see any other species here. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty amazing. That made my day seeing that. We know they're here. We keep checking on them, right? I think I seen a crow. So there should be all kinds of other birds hanging out right here too, nesting in the same spot. The migratory birds will set up shop right here, wherever the seagulls are too. And so they all got their back to me, which is really interesting. Yeah, it must be an eagle or something up there, or a hawk maybe. But they're not feeding, right? You got all these birds right here at the low, and they're in the low tide zone doing nothing. Because that's the low tide zone, right? And there's nothing there, only like a stain on the rock. There should be mussels and sea urchins. We should see all kinds of diversity, like not like the British Columbia coastline, obviously. But once the ice comes through and scrubs the coastline, there's typically an explosion of baby sea urchins and will dominate a lot of this area. Easy food for the fledglings to get, right? So there's a crow up there. He's probably going to be feeding on the fledglings, that guy. Or he's going to be trying to rob the seagull. Pretty strange not to see anything in the water feeding. No action in the ocean whatsoever. And so what I'm trying to do is just reinforce the baseline that we already established, and hopefully we find some other diversity, right? I know it's a false hope, but that's the way it rolls. You can't do it if you give up hope, right? So you always got to have some kind of hope in order to be able to have the energy to go do this. So they broke the food chain officially probably in 2000. Well, in 2011 it happened, the fallout. But by, say, 2014, the food chain was devastated. It takes a few years for it to trickle through the food chain. And so when we were doing research expeditions for 6 years from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska, we were spending 4 to 5 months on the ocean without coming home. And we were living on the ocean, and living being me. And when you get into port, you would find bandwidth and upload the story so far. And if you had lots of bandwidth, you would upload pictures to the nuclearproctologist.org with the GPSs of the areas. And then when you get home, you had to sit there and start uploading all kinds of the documentation. It's been an incredibly difficult, brutal decade for this kind of research, because there's nothing to look at. Everything is stripped. And so now we're into year 12, and it's undeniable at this stage how bad things are. So these cliffs, in particular, there should be all kinds of chalk color on it from the excrements and at the top of the chalk colored excrement would be the nest. And this is prime nesting territory for quite a few species, particularly like puffins, but also other species. Wherever you see a diversity, you're going to see, or nesting colonies, you should see multiple species, never just one species. And the residential seagulls is not excluded from that. I'm just watching my sonar. Make sure I'm not going to bash anything. We're in 18 feet of water, so we're kind of okay. So when I see the cliffs, still nothing on the cliffs, still no excrement. So you don't even need to look for the nest, you look for the excrement in reality. Obviously you're going to be looking for the nest, right? Pretty shocking. There should be tons of ducks and puffins at least. You would definitely expect to see, you know, you're in the middle of the biggest migratory route on the entire planet with 46 million birds. Still, officially still migrate through here. And so if they migrate through here, which they've been doing for eons, how come we can't find any trace of them whatsoever? Because we're not finding no trace of nothing. We're up to 46 minutes. We just got the residential seagulls and a few cormorants. So that's a real dismal so far today. And the heat is definitely, it's getting pretty warm out here. But we still got a bit of cloud cover, so we're not on the barbecue quite yet. But if the sun comes out, it's going to be pretty friggin' hot where I'm to. And so I guess I've been working all morning also until like 9 a.m. on tonight's show, and I got a whole bunch to get through when I get home this evening. We got to call up a few more garages to try to get the boat into the garage and get a diagnosis or get a fix, one or the other. Because if I'm not careful, I'm going to bust something and need a tow truck, and it's going to cost me twice or three times as much, right? Yeah, there's nothing. There's one seagull there. He's sleeping, basically. Just staring into the twilight zone. Oh, there's a little bird right there. I don't know if you caught that. Yeah, the thing with this is I can't handle the big camera at the same time. There's a seagull. Oh, he landed in the water. I can tell you right now, there's nothing out in the water. And so you're looking for whales too. And you would notice the whales because you'll see the birds following the whales. And when the whales come up to breed, they'll send up a big mist that's really easy to spot. And we're doing all these little nooks and crannies so we leave no stones unturned. And we're only cruising at idle speed. So we got a bit of a... I got some vibration back there torturing me. What the hell am I listening to? I got no idea. Let's keep going here. My apologies. There's nothing I can do about it. The vibration you're going to hear in the background. You're on a boat on the ocean. Got a lot of messages since we got on this live stream. I think we got like 10 messages. Hopefully everything is okay. Hopefully everything's okay. We had Calm Down Charlie stalking us this morning for the first bit. It's shocking. There's no species whatsoever. That's absolutely terrifying, eh? I did see some millers, little tiny millers in my back garden this morning when I was loading the boat up. We had a bit of rain last night. Another CG move from the tablet to the phone. You're having problems, or your battery was was running out maybe. And don't mind me, folks. I'm just covering my bases here because we're on the. Let's keep heading out to bay here. So now we're in prime, absolutely prime territory here. We're right on the edge of the continent. We're just a few miles from the edge of the continent. Any migratory birds, this is their last stop for quite a long ways, right? And so they're going to gather up here to raise the fledglings and start the migratory route again. And they're not here. So where the hell are they? They've been coming here for just hundreds of thousands of generations. And why did they stop coming here? Where would they go? Why would they do that? That's not built into their, like, what they do is automatic. They can't do anything about it. The migratory routes are pre-programmed into them through millenniums, right, of that routine. And so you got seagulls doing nothing on empty rocks. It's crazy. What a crazy time. And we can thank the nuclear industry for this destruction of humanity. You can't, if the species going, we're going too, and we're going quick. So we need to work. Oh, that's a big rock right there. What the hell? Oh, I got the sonar on, so. But it didn't. It doesn't show on the chart. But the chart is kind of iffy because you're into the cautious. You're in the yellow zone, which is where you probably shouldn't be. On the charts, on the GPS. And so we got 25 feet of water out here, but if I had been a little bit closer, I would have hit my leg that time. We got a bit of algae there. Holy shit, that's amazing. What the hell, right? Algae. The tide's only halfway up. And the interesting thing is, normally the seagulls are picking up sea urchins and mussels and dropping them on the sidewalks and the roads. And if you go walk the shorelines where the ocean is too, you won't see any sea urchins or mussel shells or clam shells on the shoreline or the beaches. And you're not seeing anything washed up at the tide zones because the tide's still rising. So, you know, when the tide gets to high tide, you should see something like what they call a tide line. And the tide line is where the higher tides will pick up anything up high and bring it out. And you'll get this long line. And so, yeah, it's very, very clear water. No phytoplankton, no life going on in the water. And then the mussels and the starfish and the sea urchins, sea cucumbers and everything should have been expelling their milk. And so the ocean should be getting a little bit milky because, you know, there's so many of these things, right? Now, there should be trillions of baby sea urchins in each bay, and I mean trillions. Not billions, but trillions of sea urchins in each bay. And at low tide, the seabirds would go nuts for them, right? And that's what they've been doing there for thousands and thousands of generations. I got 3 lonely seagulls. It's so strange not to see anything moving in the water. The water is basically flat calm, right? If there was anything breaching the surface, you would see it right away. If there was anything alive, you would see it right away. And let's give it a little shot of gas to get it to the point here. So hopefully we go around this point and we see 100 birds, or 1,000 or 10,000 migratory birds. And if they were there, we would see it, right? So that seagull almost looked like it's on a nest up there, right? Now it stood up. Nothing. Literally nothing whatsoever. So I apologize to everybody for not finding all kinds of species. Keep you interested. And trust me, it would be wonderful. Yeah, and each bay would have trillions of little babies from this time of the year. Because I dove this coast for years too, right? And it's not to see anything in the tidal zone is the strangest feeling imaginable for me and for the species. This is what is the migratory birds. My opinion is have been wiped out. They've been exterminated. They starved to death. They're trying to blame it. Last year in March, they started. May, June. I think it was June or May. They tried to blame it on the bird flu, and then they were trying to blame all the die-offs all at the same time on the bird flu, and it was a pathetic excuse. They gave up on it, but they were testing baby foxes and baby raccoons and baby anything that they found dead, even roadkill. They were testing it for bird flu, and the laboratory. The government laboratory was finding bird flu, but the independent laboratories were describing them as emaciated. And 12 feet of water. My GPS is not registering. My GPS is not registering. You see a little question mark beeping, right? So, I wonder why the GPS is not registering. It registered here at all the other times. Yeah, more messages coming in. If I check the messages, I'm going to lose my stream. So I can't check the messages until until the stream is over, and the stream is only going to be over when the stream is over. Okay, I got my GPS back. So these cliffs should be covered in excrement, and there should be really like real nesting colonies and rookeries here. Fucking, excuse the language. But that's so annoying, whatever the frig that is. We'll find something to stuff in there to stop it. There you go. I stuffed the hydraulic bottle in between there, and I should get rid of some of that freaking... No. That's the boat life for you. Not much you can do about it. So we're not seeing any diversity whatsoever this morning. This is day 10 of no diversity. Day 10 of no species, just the seagulls and a couple of cormorants. And these are all residential. No migratory birds whatsoever. We'll pick up a little bit of speed here and try to get out, because we're up to an hour. We've been streaming for an hour. That's okay, I don't care, because I got the charger this morning. We'll stream for a bit more. We'll stream probably, well, till we get out to the point. Or who knows, we'll see. And, we'll stream till we get out to the point. This is all prime territory right here. There's a few houses along the shoreline, but there's not much. But remember, the birds have been coming here for generations, right? They'll adapt because it happens in increments, right? No whales, no birds, no flocks of birds anywhere to be seen. Now that island straight across is a separate bird colony. And that's where we've seen the seagulls were cannibalizing the... There's a seagull in right here, and there's a crow. Seagull looks like it's trying to eat microscopic animals. Or maybe that's insects or something. Maybe I'm missing something. 'Cause I don't see any insects today. There's no... there's nothing here for a migratory bird to eat. Let alone the seagulls, right? So the plan is to go out to the point and then go across, go north, and then come in along the north shore. That's going to take another 2.5, 3 hours probably. So I'm just going to speed around this little section right here. I'm totally, well, there's 2 more cormorants flying ahead of me. Or maybe that's not. They're gliding. That could be ducks. Because that's what a duck will do. It'll flap its wing and glide. And they're landing up there quite a ways off that point. So we'll be there in a few minutes. We'll just, see if that's ducks or cormorants. There's 2 of them. Hi Ashley. First time you caught a live stream? Welcome. It's not your typical live stream. We're out on a research expedition. The greatest show on earth is right. Thank you, Don. It's 100% right. I just wish there was 1,000 people doing this. And so, like, why doesn't the nuclear industry prove me wrong? After all these years, you know? I'm not seeing nothing. We're hoping though there's 2 ducks up right here. Now, typically with ducks you won't get very close to them. I really, really hope they're ducks and not cormorants. Because generally I don't remember seeing cormorants glide. Ducks will flap their wings and pigeons will do the same thing. And these were too big to be pigeons. And then they'll glide. So ducks and puffins rather, they'll flap their wings for short bursts and then they'll glide. And so that's looking, I see one of them in there, it looks like a cormorant, but gotta get a bit closer. Gotta get a bit closer. If that's ducks, they'll take off pretty quick. There's nothing nesting on the shorelines. So I do believe that's the duck. He's turning around, coming towards me now. Kamikaze duck. No, that's cormorant. There's two of them. Two cormorants. Such is life. Wish that was ducks. That would have been awesome. At least something. At least something would have been awesome. And so quite surprised not to see anything. The biggest breeding ground, the biggest migratory route for seabirds on the entire planet, and we haven't seen a single migratory bird in 10 trips. And I do believe these trips are getting harder rather than easier to do. Oh, she's getting shallow. Looks okay. Instead of looking down, you got to watch the sonar, right? Because the sonar is forward watching. You can't run. I don't know why you can't run it. Well, you don't need the sounder when you're running the sonar, I guess. But my system is that was close. That's the closest I think. Well, there's twice I got that close to lobster pots. I'm pretty good anyway, right? It's not a big deal because I'm going so slow. You just don't want to. You don't want to accidentally wrap up in a lobster pot line. The fishermen got to make a living too, right? You don't want to take a chance on. Well, I'm basically. I'm shocked that I'm not seeing nothing on the cliffs whatsoever, no excrements. So there was no migratory run this year. If they were going to be here, they would have been here earlier because they have to raise their fledglings, right? And this is the prime spot. This is the last stop, right? You're out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So there's zero possibility they're not going to stop here. They've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of generations. And because this happened in increments over the last 12 years, a lot of people... Oh, there's an eagle. There is an eagle. Well, that's his nest right there, is it? That's his nest. Hang on, I'll get a picture for you in a second. I can't even spot him now. Where the hell is he to? Oh, he's over. He's right there in the center. You see that tree in the center kind of on the... He's below that. He's down below that about on the cliff. And that's his nest there. Look at that. I'll get my glasses and I'll try to zoom in for you. It's not looking... I don't know why it's so hard to see on... That's him right there. So he should be basically almost in the middle of the screen here. I'm just trying to adjust my... Give me a second. So I'll have to come back here with the big camera and get some pictures. I can't do it right now when I'm streaming. I gotta pack up a little bit before I get a big bang bang on my prop. It costs us just $300 or $400. Well, that was exciting. We seen a eagle. I didn't see him tending to any I'm not sure if that's a young one itself, right? And we did see a young eagle on the last trip, and I showed pictures of that yesterday or the stream before yesterday. We showed a bunch of pictures from the coastline. There was no, when we come to the forest sections of the shoreline, we're not seeing any little small birds in the forest. We did see two little small shorebirds, and that's the only ones we've seen in 10 days, 10 trips. In 10 trips. And so that's a iconic sight, those small birds. And it's so quiet out here, it's just shocking, isn't it? These cliffs should be just absolutely paradise. And the eagle is confused because there's nothing here. There's nothing to... The eagle is probably surviving on fledglings from the seagull colony. That's probably why we've seen the seagulls rise up on that little colony we've seen back there. With those eagles. Now that's the only eagle we see on this side. That doesn't mean there's not more here, but we haven't seen them. That's the first time we've seen an eagle in this bay in particular. We should be close to the lighthouse right here. We're going to shoot across here in a second. Once I just get up to the point, I can see the point out here. Well, I can't remember exactly how far it is. I can back the GPS up and figure it out though pretty quick. Let me measure it. It's one more nautical mile to the point. So it's 1 nautical mile to that point. Stop planning. We're back to that screen. And the breadcrumb trails, the little ticker tape is the previous trips. Now I erased a bunch of them because it's too cluttered. About 4 days, 4 trips back, I started all new breadcrumb trails. Pretty dismal. So we're going to shoot across, I think, right now to the other side. That takes a minute. And we'll check those cliffs. Let's try shooting across. Make sure there's no traffic. Ah, it's gonna be like that this morning, is it? There we go. Sometimes it'll go full speed, sometimes it won't. And we got problems with the truck, problems with the boat motor. But how do we not come out and try? Let's see. Usually when it does it once, it's going to do it again. So usually if I tilt the motor up a little bit, I can get past it. There you go. Okay, we're going to go in on the north side, and there's a seagull colony up here where they were cannibalizing the baby seagulls, the fledglings. And I'm gonna go circle that island right around it at least once. And but meantime, we're gonna go to the point and then work our way in right here. And it's flat calm out here. It's absolutely flat calm. Yeah, and check your quality, folks. Because like a lot of times when there's a puffin. That was amazing. Where's he going? Where's he going? He's making a turn. He's going across the front of the bow, and he's headed back out. There's two of them out there, two puffins. We're going to make the turn here in a second. So this is prime area right here. You're right out at the tip. That's the open Pacific out there, or Atlantic rather. It's 5,500 miles to Europe if you keep going straight out from here. And so the seas come in and they tear up these this shore, like this coastline. And this is perfect prime migratory, because you're right at the edge of the continent. So if the birds are going to stop, this is the last stop, right? And so if they're not here, where the hell are they? Because they're supposed to be here. And there's typically 46 million migratory birds will come through. Oh, and there's a puffin colony up there. Just hang on now, I'll zoom in for you. 1, 2, 3. Let me zoom in. I just got to center the screen here. You should see some puffins. I can see 3. 4, 5, 6. There's one going up and landing. Oh yeah, there's 1, 2, there's 3. There's 3 going up and landing. I'm trying to count them now. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's another one, 18, and there's another one up on the cliff up here, but he went back. So I bet you there's probably 50 here, but I can't see him. And so, now we've been here quite a bit. We've never noticed them, eh? And so I'm not sure if they're new or something. I lost track here. Hang on. Well, that's super exciting. At least it's something, right? I know it's not much, but it reinforces what I'm talking about, where these cliffs should be full of incredible amount. This is prime nesting ground for species. These cliffs, because there's no predators whatsoever. We'll just stay for a few minutes and try to get a handle on what we're looking at. And they're coming and going. They're coming and going. But where are they going to is the question, right? They should be feeding, see? Well, I don't care because I got to see them, so that's a big win for us. That's a huge deal. So I say there's probably 50 maybe. Yeah, it's really hard to spot them, unfortunately. And it's harder for you guys because you're going on a cell phone. So next time I come out here, we'll get the big camera. We'll take our time and zoom in. In fact, that's probably what I'll do here in a little bit. I'm going to go over to that other colony of gulls and see if we can find any other species in there. And we're just going to go along this shoreline for a little while. So that was absolutely, that's 10 days to find a little flock of birds, when there should be around 46 million people, or birds. My apologies, everybody. There should be around 46 million birds. So we're going to just go in this little nook right here. I was in the other day and sounded it out. I was in the other day and sounded this out, so we're going to go in here and look around and see. The tide is still coming up, but look how naked the shoreline is. So the tide's about a little over halfway up, I think. It's 121. I'm not sure what the hell is going on. Because the tide today, they said it was 7 hours between low tide and high tide. And I'm confused by that. It shouldn't be that far. So maybe they made a mistake. But obviously the tide is not all the way up or even close to it. I don't know. It's the Atlantic Ocean. So we're going to go in this little, and somebody got a lobster pot in there. It makes it a little more trickier. I just want to check the cliffs in here, right? To see if there's anything. This is all prime nesting ground. There should be just incredible diversity around here. I don't really want to go in here any further, I guess. Okay, well, let's keep going along the shoreline here. There's nothing here. There's nothing there. So if there was any whales or any kind of feeding activity, we'd see it right away. And all of this area is just incredibly prime feeding ground. Two birds doing nothing again. Here comes the sun, which gives us better visibility, right? Yeah, it's going to get a hell of a lot hotter, but it's, at least there's some visibility. So there's probably 50 puffins out right there. So that's another little colony we can, I'll come back a little tiny bit and use the big camera and document what I can. We're going to be what I mean by that is I can zoom in with the big camera and hopefully we can spot babies, right? With their heads peeking over the cliff. You got somebody up in that point up there, up on top of that hill, the one closest to the ocean. Sometimes that'll be the guy who owns the lobster pots worried you're poaching or something, right? The last thing I'm going to do is poaching anybody's. If he wants it, I'll go buy it off him, right? And just, there are people that will come out and steal a fisherman's livelihood, right? So there's a beautiful little spot in there. I'm tempted to go in. There's no reason I won't go in there, I suppose. So let's. We'll save it for another day. You can see all the cliffs. Yeah, he's taking pictures of me. He's taking pictures. Now he's checking to see who I am. Yeah, good for him. So I'm not seeing any nesting birds along this shoreline. Whatsoever. Yeah, the water is way too clear, James. Isn't it? The water should be fairly dirty, all things considered. Phytoplankton is zooplankton. And that's what that seagull in there is eating is, I think, right? Is eating microscopic food. Because there's nothing else to eat. Now those pigeons, they gotta be surviving on something. So they generally, right now they should be raising their fledglings on capelin, or the puffins rather. And the puffins can carry 7, 8, 9, 10 capelin in their mouth at the one time. And so I'm going to go back there after I stop the streaming a little bit and zoom in and see if we can see them coming back with capelin in their mouth to feed fledglings. And that whole area up here would be prime nesting ground. Hi everybody, Navi. So that island on the outside up there, that's the seagull colony, and there was a colony of tickalass, around 200 of them on the outside of it. I'm going to go up there and circle that island. But we're just going to meander along the shoreline here for a little bit. And we're up to an hour and 30 minutes. Holy shit. It's a little hard on the body, eh? When you're, because you got to hold your body in a certain way. It's all good. Just adjust. And it's a good thing I got a light shirt on because it's stinking hot here today. Holy shit. That's a little rough to deal with. And so we got a little small nest of about 50 puffins. On this island up here, we got a small colony of cormorants, a small colony of tickleass, which are like little tiny seagulls, and a colony of seagulls. I'm estimating, I'm not sure, but I'm estimating around 6 to 1,000. It's hard to tell because a lot of them are gone over to the fish plant to feed. And so you got to come here when the fish plant is closed or before it opens, basically, to figure out how many birds are hanging along this coastline. But there's no migratory, not a single migratory bird in 10 trips, nothing. And it's absolutely flat calm here today, so there's no food, that's right, yeah. It's absolutely flat calm now. And these little small islands out there by themselves, this is absolute prime breeding territory because no predators outside of eagles can get at them, right? Well, I guess, you know, there are like otters and minks could get up there and get the eggs, I suppose, and kill some of the fledglings, but when you got a group of them, they can fend themselves pretty good. Yeah, a little shocked that there's nothing, just those little spots, right? And when you come in here, there's nothing left. We're going to head over to that island right now, which is just 2 minutes away if I can get the boat to go. Sometimes the boat will go up to speed and sometimes it won't. Let's see if we can get her up. Zip over to that spot. All right. Yeah, no alarm. It'll probably happen when I slow down. That's twice we've done that this morning. There you are, bastard. Well, the alarm went the first time we tried it, and then I adjusted the tilt on the engine, and then the alarm went again, and the third time we took off, we came across the bay. And this time we got a, so I think it's the tilt switch, the sending unit. We got 3 cormorants. We got around 150 cormorants on this island. And we're going to go down the outside of the island and come up the inside of it. I'm going to stop the live stream at that point once I circle this little island, and then I'm going to go back out with a puffins or two, and I'm going to use the zoom lens on my camera. Yeah, I hear you. Now we're back to that mode where it goes off even at slow speeds. But if you give it a shot of gas, it got a tendency to go away. So we believe this colony is surviving from the fish plant, is raising, if they're raising at all. We know they were cannibalizing some of the babies because we've seen them do it. And on the outside of this, we're coming up to in a little tiny bit. We've seen about 150 or 200, I should say, tickleass, which are like little small seagulls. And so in the bays on each side of us, the two big bays, we didn't see any colonies whatsoever. This was the only colony. Well, I see a fledgling up on the rock up there. I'm going to zoom in here in a second and see if I can... Oh, hang on. And so you see a seagull on a rock, and he's in the middle, almost. I just went past the middle. There's a fledgling right alongside of him. And we're going to lose sight of him in a second. But he's the highest seagull you're seeing. There's two of them. And the one to your left is the fledgling. So we got a fledgling. Yeah, and this should be loaded with all kinds of other birds. These are the residential birds, right? But that was amazing to see an actual young one. That was amazing to see an actual young one. And as far as I can tell, these birds are raising the young from the fish plant. The plane just flew over me. I don't know where he's to, but he came in super low over me. He was checking me out. And so we got another 10 minutes and then we'll end the stream. Because generally my battery won't last much longer, and it won't work on the gimbal if I plug the charger into it. So I can only use the charger when it's not streaming. Because I'm streaming, I got it in the gimbal to keep it kind of steady. And in the gimbal, it's turned sideways in the gimbal. I'm using an app, right? And when I tried to do it, and so this is the little colony. I'm going to get in pretty close to these guys of the tickle ass. And we're going to zoom in and see these guys. There's a couple of puffins just flew inside of us. There's a cormorant up, a bunch of cormorants at the top. At the top, you see the cormorants? And below them is the tickle ass. This is a nesting colony of little small tickle ass. How awesome is that? How freaking awesome is this? They're all right here in this one spot. And you get the cormorants right above them. And there should be all kinds of other species nesting fairly close to this. But that's a pretty impressive sight. And I haven't counted them. And I'm going to come back here after with the big camera and zoom in on these guys. So let's keep going around the island and see what we can spot before we, because we're going to end the stream in about 7 or 8 minutes. And there's another bunch of cormorants up there. Below them is some, well, not many, but that seagull just brought food in. So there must be some fledglings right there. I'll keep the camera in there because we're going to get a bit of wind distortion for a few minutes till I make the turn. But we're going to make the turn in a matter of a minute or two. And then I can have the camera back out. Sorry. So that's great. That was pretty awesome. And so there's another bunch of cormorants up there at the top again. Yeah, endangered gulls. We had James, we had Charlie was here earlier, Calm Down Charlie. When I started the show, Calm Down Charlie called me over and over and over. I answered the phone, but it disconnected the live stream when you do it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. There's around 60 of them up there. Hopefully you can see it. Of the cormorants. There might even be more. So I think that, and there's another bunch up at the top up here. Look at that. And they don't belong here, right? But they live in harmony, I've noticed over the last couple of years with the seagulls. I can see another fledgling right up there. You probably won't be able to see it. That's excellent. But where's the migratory birds too is the big question, right? Where the hell are the migratory birds? And this is where we've seen a seagull pull out a little fledgling and throw it down on the rocks down here and then consume it, right? Yeah, it's nice to see anything living, Colette, that's right. And the thing about my comments is they pop up and then they disappear again right away. And so I see another fledgling up here. Okay, there's at least one fledgling. So that's 2 or 3 fledglings I saw with my own eyes. And where are they getting the food if they're not feeding in the ocean? They must be feeding at the fish plant, right? Now it'd be interesting to see the cormorants' little babies, right? I gotta check and see if it's legal to get on the island, because we're gonna have to come back and get on this island in the next few days. Or I got a drone there. We can send a drone up, I guess. Hopefully they don't attack my expensive drone. Let's keep going here. We're almost another 3 or 4 minutes. The stream is over, so yeah, they're eating from the fish plant. This is my take on it. I don't see anything feeding in all these days we've been out here. This is day 10. We've never seen a migratory bird in 10 trips. And these cliffs should be full of all kinds of different species. There should be 10 or 15,000 at least birds on this island. And like I said, they've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of generations, coming back to these spots and sharing it with the residential birds that live here all year. Because it's prime fishing ground. You're around this prime fishing territory. So we're going to end the stream when we get just right down to that. There's about another 600 feet or something. And I'm not seeing no cormorant groups on this side of the island. Because I guess they're looking out to the open bay. And they're like puffins where they love the cliffs, the ledges. The highest vantage points, that's where we're seeing them to. And so there's quite a few nesting. I'm assuming there's 1,000 seagulls on this island. I see another fledgling. So that's 4 confirmed fledglings. They're getting pretty big if they're out of their nest, right? So this week is prime time for getting pictures. They're going to have to take pictures of every square foot of this island. So we're going to have to do that today after the stream is over in about 2 minutes. I'm going to go around this island and take pictures of the entire island so we can zoom in. I'll do that live during one of the shows. And then I'm going to shoot back out to get puffin. There's around 50 puffins or more. We're gonna do every square foot of those cliffs. And because my camera and my lenses, I got really nice stuff, and I can shoot in continuous shots. The water is unbelievable clean. There's no life. And the thing about it is when you're in the tidal zones, you should see species getting out of the way because you're above them. And you would see flatfish and guppies and codfish and schooling fish breaching the water. When it's calm like this, and we haven't seen in 10 trips any small species breaching the surface. And where they're being driven up by predators, they'll come right to the surface, and the surface will come alive for a few minutes. I know, seagulls. I hear you. Okay, well, that's the show. We'll be back tonight for another live show in the studio. I'm going to document this entire island right now. Then I'm going to go out and document those puffins we saw out there. And then I'm going to slowly work my way back in the port. And we're going to reach out to a few more garages to see if I can get in there this week and get a diagnosis on the truck. And so we streamed for an hour and 47 minutes. We streamed for an hour and 47 minutes. It'll be interesting to see what's left of the battery. Yeah, you're welcome, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Have a great day. We'll see everybody tonight. And I'm going to document this entire island now. And with pictures so I can zoom in and find any fledglings that I can see from my angle. And that looked like 4 crows in there at that time. And then we'll do that sometime in the week. We'll go through those pictures. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, folks, if you make it this far. And if you know of any Auburn bird societies, send this video out to them. Just email it to them. Look up bird societies and email a link to this picture, because they love stuff like this too. And we might even start a conversation, who knows. I can't do it all on my own, right? And there's a lot of people out there, and if just 10% of them were to email the video out to a couple of societies, it's too bad my motor wasn't working the way it's supposed to work, because that would solve a lot of the problems where I can shoot to different places. Right now I got to play it safe, right? Okay, we'll see everybody tonight. Have a great day. Thank you for finding time, the energy, and the effort. We'll see everybody on the other side.